You want a whore, buy one. You want a queen, earn her.
Sansa thinks she's smarter than everyone.
She's the smartest person I've ever met.
You gave up your crown to save your people. Would she do the same?
It's a message from the Night King.
His arm is between us and Winterfell. If the horses last, we'll get there before the dead.
What are you doing out here?
Waiting for an old friend.
Hey, what's going on? Men of the North, podcast number 2. It's a Game of Thrones related precap featuring 4 members of the Unsullied into episode number 2, season 8, Game of Thrones. One of the cast members producing the presentation. Hello, Eric Nordquist. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you.
Is it okay if moving forward for this podcast, we make your character Hodor?
Does he have any choice in the matter?
Can all of your responses just be hold the door, hold the door,
Hodor.
Right. Okay, we'll move forward with you being Eric Nordquist.
Hodor.
Aaron Gleeman, the editor-in-chief of Baseball Prospectus by day, the Thrones techie by night, at Aaron Gleeman via Twitter. He was established in podcast number 1 as Samuel Tarley. Are you still okay?
Samuel,
thank you.
Yes.
Juan Samuel Tarley.
That's right.
I feel that in terms of you assigning people, that is about the best I could ever hope for. So yes, I'm willing to accept that as
But
mine.
you have, as the Thrones techie and as Mr. Tarley, you have a major role in the precap, episode 1 and probably episode 2.
Yeah, you got a little bit of bad news. Kind of bummed him out a little in the first episode, but I feel he's ready to bounce back from that.
Sorry about your dad. Sorry about your brother. Maybe we'll chat about it a little later.
I think he's okay with that.
Yeah.
That is the voice of Paul Charchian of fanball.com. For this episode, you were Tyrion Lannister last week.
I thought that was pretty good.
I think it's perfect, but I want to make you Littlefinger, but then that might make you dead.
I think you just want my little finger, and I don't want to know what for.
And I'm Paul Allen. On my 9 to noon radio show at FM 100.3, KFAN, KFAN.com. The producer, Hodor, for whatever the reason, made me Grey Worm.
Yes.
I'm not exactly sure why I'm the leader of the Unsullied and why I can't have any fun 24/7 from a sexual standpoint, but you are reminded that beautiful curly-haired girl, can't remember her name, she's always by my side.
And you can't do a thing about it.
I know! That sucks. We are the Unsullied with the precap into episode number 2, and let's begin here. After episode number 1, Game of Thrones, the first of 6 this Sunday, 8 p.m. Central, HBO, episode number 2, we started a text string between Men of the North, and the Thrones techie Aaron Gleeman deemed episode 1 underwhelming.
Yeah.
So now that we are X amount of days removed from episode 1, do we all feel episode 1 was underwhelming? Did we appreciate the nuance to it? And what leads up to episode number 2?
Well, I will start, and I will say that I felt the exact same way. And through our text thread, we were all kind of lockstep in terms of, was there going to be a frenetic pace into the season? Didn't see that episode 1. They did need to set the table for a lot of things, though. So since Sunday night, I've watched the episode 3 different times now.
Jeez.
And now that you're starting to see why the chess pieces are in place, underwhelming from an action standpoint. Very little in the blood and gore and battles. Big names and fantasy-related pools as to who lives and who dies. Didn't get paid off in that respect, but got paid off in terms of finally some things we've been waiting for as viewers, in some cases knowing more than the characters. Now the characters are coming around, and therefore I appreciated episode 1 in that respect.
Techie, give us your best.
I rewatched it. I just rewatched it this morning for
You
the
broke
third
down
time.
the all 22 of Thrones.
I was pausing it. I was circling stuff with the telestrator. I was doing, and I like it more the second and third watching because, for the reasons that Nordo said, which is they clearly wanted to lay out every possible thing to sort of to set it as sort of a clean slate in terms of storylines. It doesn't bother me that there wasn't a lot of bloodshed or there wasn't some big battle and there was only
it's coming.
They only had the one nude scene. Like when I said on Twitter that I was kind of underwhelmed by it, and I got all these responses from people who go, it doesn't all have to be some big bloodshed battle. And I was like, no, I thought the more disappointing part was just like the tone of it seemed. I thought it was like sort of like a romantic comedy. Like they were going for so many like laugh lines and like the dragon scene. It seemed like now they're going to go out on their big date.
That was the low point.
So like
for sure.
there were moments like that. But yeah, rewatching
Stay here
it
for 1,000 years,
Right.
and no one would find it.
And the dragon was pissed off staring at Jon Snow.
and also like for her to be like. It's cold for us,
Keep
whatever,
your
Southern
queen
girl
warm.
here, and to keep her warm. I was like, come on now. Like, that wouldn't,
it was pretty Danielle Steele.
that wouldn't go over at the
That
worst
point.
happy hour in Uptown. You
Right.
couldn't use that
Yeah,
line.
right.
Believe me, I've tried. So, like, but second and third watching, I thought it was a little bit better. And, and also, like, to be very clear, I was so hyped in the mirror that I don't know how they could have met that level of. I don't know what it would have taken for me to be like, that was amazing.
Yeah. See, I mean, I'm not an elite George R.R. Martin or like Steven Spielberg mind, but I was really hoping, Charchie, that they would come out of the gate with like 3 to 5 minutes of taking the walkers getting through the wall.
Yeah.
And then advance that for like 3 minutes.
We wanted to know where they were.
I mean, even if it was like Ed Sheeran's aggressive, nondescript group just happening to be there.
Singing
Some
songs
bad luck.
in the woods.
And and there was a little kind of a fight there. Then we settled into the Unsullied rolling into Winterfell, but that wasn't the case. What were your thoughts?
I liked it from the beginning. I never had a problem with it. Other than the dragon scene, I thought it was all very good. And as Game of Thrones always does, they leave you with all these cliffhangers at the end of season 7, and they wrapped most of them up.
Yeah.
And I have no problem with them doing that. It's the calm before the storm. This thing is going to be frantic most of the rest of the way.
You think starting now, right?
Starting now.
Yeah.
Now, I will be shocked if episode 2 is as languorous as episode 1 was.
Okay, you guys are more Elite Thrones minds than yours truly. So, like in the when they were previewing episode 2, and like Jon Snow and some other people were like looking over a wall, and clearly something's happening. With the walkers, specifically with the Night King, with the aggressive dragon with the blue eyes, will they hit Winterfell before they hit anything else?
I believe. Well, that's when the Rogue Group and the Men Without Banners, when they're at House Umber, and they find
with the kid with the limbs,
right?
Yep.
That's where they establish. Well, they've already been here,
right.
and next stop,
Right.
And so they're saying, well, we're on feet. We're not going to make it there on time. And then the other guys had some horses, and now it's a race against time to get to Winterfell.
Wow, which could start coming to fruition
This episode.
Episode number 2.
Yes.
My last bit on episode 1, by the way, and you mentioned that tweet, Gleeman, that it's not all about nude scenes and battles.
Yeah.
But a potentially legendary nude foursome HBO style, nothing too crazy, was about to take place with Bronn.
Rough.
And one of the biggest clipping penalties in the history of the series, Qyburn just puts water on everything and says, "Here's a crossbow. Go poetically kill Tyrion the way that the imp killed his dad." Screwed everything up. And stopped.
And Tyrion's, hundreds of miles away.
Yeah.
Why does he have to leave right then?
That's
Give
what
him
they
20 minutes.
That's true.
Wrap that up.
That's a good
that's
point.
brilliant.
On this show, they never go like, "Want to hit me back in like 20?"
Yeah,
or let's
right.
be honest, like 8.
Yeah.
Like just make a circle around the block and then knock on the door, and then I can make my long journey to go kill this guy.
Exactly.
Men of the North podcast. We are the Unsullied. Eric Nordquist, Aaron Gleeman, Paul Charchian, and Paul Allen. One of the let's begin with where episode 1 ended. You have Nordo's guy Bran sitting outside saying he's waiting for, quote, an old friend, end quote. Well, then Jaime Lannister rolls around, and that's the end of episode number 1. Of course, we go back to season 1.
I thought, by the way, great payoff.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Big
Loved
time.
ending on that.
Jaime and his sister Cersei. There's Bran. There goes Jaime. There goes Bran. Bran's crippled for the rest of the seasons. So now, what do we think of the potential, specifically with what's about to transpire episode number 2? In the ultimate we're even fashion, Bran's going to be put in a spot where he's going to die, and Jaime is going to save his life. Now all bets are settled.
That's possible. I mean, that would
Possible.
even the scales, right? I mean, this isn't a show that requires you to even the scales, and that's part of the beauty of it. But, it could very well go that way. Now, Bran tells us he can see the future. If he decides to just let Jaime go, that tells us that Jaime's got a pivotal role in saving humanity
And
going forward.
I feel like they've been hinting at that because even when Jon Snow calls him my brother, he's like, "I'm not your brother anymore."
Right.
So he may not even view the fact that what he used to be was pushed out of a window by this guy, he may think like I'm not that kid anymore. Like I'm not. I don't even.
Right. He doesn't even identify with that kid.
Right. So then why do I care if he did that?
Fair point.
Also, like, I did like how they set up Jamie. Basically, is just he's like riding solo, truly, and they set it up nice. He's coming up on a horseback,
and he has dark hair.
Yeah, he's got dark hair. He's got the poor posture. He's got like some dirty jacket over him. Like I liked how they set that up. But the other, like, he's not going to see a whole lot of, even if Bran is sort of willing to not make a big deal out of that.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to phrase that, but he's not. There aren't a lot of friendly faces there. Like Daenerys, once she finds out who it is going to be super mad at him.
That's like the key to
He's
everything.
risking his life,
right,
big time.
So I feel
by
like
going to Winterfell filled with people that don't have reason to kill him.
But who will, like Tyrion will be friendly towards him. At least.
Yes,
so
for sure.
It may depend on Tyrion's ability to talk other people down.
It might.
Which is sort of what he's done in the past.
So Jon Snow will be friendly. He's friendly to everybody.
Well, yeah, mostly, yes.
Although if Daenerys is really mad, he might
that's the angle,
pick a
right?
fight on her behalf.
I really think that deserves greater discussion. Daenerys has every reason to be extremely angry with Jaime because Jaime killed her father.
Right.
Yep.
And
the Kingslayer.
Now, the other side of it is Daenerys has frequently described her father as a bad man, a brutal king, and she's worked very hard.
His nickname's the Mad King.
The Mad King. She's worked very hard every time it's come up to distance herself from him. So I think they're going to get through it.
It's a little bit like the Samwell part that we were talking about earlier, where she basically informs him, I killed your dad. Oh, yeah, I also killed your brother. And he's sad, but also he hated his dad.
That's right.
I think he was kind of like ambivalent towards the brother, but like he did not like that dad at all, and yet you're still sort of sad.
Yeah.
So I feel like what you described, like Daenerys might be willing to say, well, my dad wasn't such a great guy, but also I bet she doesn't, invite him in for a drink or something like that. Although, who knows? I mean, she may basically say at this point, we need anybody who can bring value to the situation.
I think that's going to be exactly it.
It's the mercy or lack of mercy from Daenerys to that infinitely, for me, trumps the relationship between Bran. But then the other thing, the redeeming quality, whether it's Tyrion that comes to his side as a brother may or would.
Yes.
The key to this is the reunion with Sansa and Tyrion, where Tyrion believes that he has sold Cersei on the armies coming north.
Right.
We bring this thing to your doorstep. We show you that the threat is real. And she says, I'm sending out my armies. Well, then we know that ain't happening. And it's all just let them kill each other and then come south. We will deal with it when the threat is upon us. So is it a redeeming quality that knowing that he eventually will be seeing several people that may want him dead, that Jaime rebuffs Cersei's thoughts and decides to ride alone north to face the greater threat.
Right. He let's remember, nobody in Winterfell knows for a fact that Cersei's double-crossed them.
So he can
he's the
confirm
one who's coming.
Yeah.
He's the one coming with that information,
and he still showed up.
He showed up. So he's going to be the one revealing in this episode that Cersei's double-crossed them. And that will also, be another reason why I think he's going to live. And then the last thing we'll mention about mercy. Remember when Daenerys had Sam's father and Dickon and Riddell or whatever killed, and Tyrion was like, "Hey, show mercy. Let him sit in the. This is going to be her." And she didn't. This will be the time she shows mercy.
Right. So she learns her lesson from similar advice previously.
That's right.
The other thing about the Sansa Tyrion, like. They clearly set that up where she says to Tyrion, I used to think you were the most clever guy.
Yeah.
So she's basically saying you've lost your edge.
Yes.
And then in a different scene, Jon Snow is talking to Arya, and Arya says, I got the exact quote here because I just want to fully nerd out. It says, he says to Arya, Sansa thinks she's smarter than everyone, and Arya said she's the smartest person I've ever met.
Yep.
And so they're clearly trying to set up her advice on Cersei as being one that even the most stubborn men in this scenario will eventually listen to. And I feel like that combined with Jaime showing up and saying, oh yeah, she's right, if he can at least get in a room with all these people, could cause them to basically spend this next episode scheming on a way to kind of counterpunch against her double-crossing them.
Speaking of Sansa, are we approaching some form of power struggle between Sansa and Daenerys? I mean, because it was palpable.
Oh, yeah.
Sansa's level of jealousy.
So much side-eye.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of side-eye.
Yeah.
Her quizzical nature of, so why are we so far down the road on Khaleesi? And, like, what's the long play with this? And do you love her? Or why did you bend the knee? Like, what do we think is next year?
Well, and by the way, that's, I think, a natural reaction for Sansa.
Yes.
I think that was reasonable
This
reaction.
is anytime some dude shows up with a new girl at a family get-together, the reaction is like, who is this lady? Like, she's cute, but really? Like, what do you... Yes, I feel like that was a little bit of that. And also, like, all she's gone
She
through...
brought Jell-O?
Yeah, right. No. Like, how long have you known this girl?
With the
What's her
carrot
family
shavings.
like? Yeah, she brought dragons, but come on.
Don't you think they're setting up, if you believe my theory that we talked about last episode, that the big battle is going to come in the middle of the season, not at the end of the season.
Right.
We still have a looming Stark versus Lannister versus Targaryen power struggle coming at the end of this. And it's going to be Sansa versus Daenerys coming later.
Yeah, I'm really into that theory, Charch, and I had not thought of that until you presented it in episode 1, Men of the North. But like the two of the 4 people with whom I watch Game of Thrones, Cotton John and Poopy Dave, I ran those theories by them. And they hadn't really thought of them either, that, everything with the Walkers and the White Walkers and the Night King and the Blue-Eyed Dragon could come to fruition middle of this season, and then the families just settle the bet for like the final 2 or 3 episodes for the Iron Throne. I don't know, do you I didn't ask you last week, Nordo or Thrones Techie Aaron Gleeman, are you guys into that theory or are you not?
200% for me, and the fact that they've already gone south of Umber and now they're racing to Winterfell, that feels, how long can you draw that out?
Right. Yeah.
So they're going to show up. Last thing for me, I think the power struggle is the A topic, and they do a lot of things, and it's Daenerys and Sansa. Then it's the reunion between Arya and Jon Snow by the tree, where Arya makes it clear. She says, as you mentioned, Sansa's the smartest person I've ever met. And then what she's doing, Arya says, is best for the family. Jon says, well, I'm part of this family too. And Arya, as she's hugging him, says, don't forget that.
Yeah.
So there's very much that family first. You're treading on our territory, protecting the North and Winterfell vibe. And that's an absolute. It has to be a collision course of powers there. And as they continue to elevate Sansa's status as not only sniffing out lies or things like with Tyrion and Cersei and such, clever man I've ever met, all of that. That power struggle and dynamic is going to be huge.
So is Khaleesi Jon Snow's aunt?
Yes.
Okay, so like into episode 1, season 8, we've all known that Jon Snow is the rightful heir to the throne, and he's a Targaryen.
Right.
But that had to be established, and I'm glad it was episode 1, season 8. It now has been established.
Now he knows.
This is big. Where does this storyline go that Jon Snow is related to Daenerys Targaryen? And Sansa and just everybody. Where's it go?
So John now knows, but you can't just blurt this out to Khaleesi, right? He's got to be really thoughtful about when and if ever he's going to release that information.
Maybe have a few more rolls in the hay. And then let her know. Get that out of your system, foolish. You've already done it a few times.
She might, if it's a battle for supremacy, she just might kill him.
She might, right? And you need, Jon needs her armies for the battle against the dead, right? You can't say it right off the bat. Can't do. And by the way, the other part is, Jon can't prove it. Yeah. He has no proof whatsoever. Well, Bran had a vision. What? Although Sam's got the books, that's
but there's no 23 and me or whatever from back then. They can't be like, your DNA shows.
There's somebody out there who is the nephew, but what's to say? Who's to say it's Jon Snow? We don't know. So there isn't enough proof yet, and I think Jon needs Daenerys on his side so badly he can't spill the beans yet.
Okay, well, here's what's going to happen though: is there's going to be a moment of intimacy where it's just the two of them, and Daenerys is going. You can't. Some people's husbands or wives do it, but you can't just say I'm tired every single time. She wants to get after it.
Yeah.
Because
she's Varel.
And
Randy.
And she wants to go, and he's going to have to say, well, I'm not really in the mood, or I'm busy. I got plans with Samwell.
Yeah.
You could only.
And then the dragon smiles.
Correct. Yes. And so that's at some point it's got to be paid off. Now, best scenario for him is that this information is revealed when she is in large company. So Bran's in the mix, Samwell's there, big reveal. but it's definitely going to happen.
Really?
I think when they're alone because now she can't immediately slit his throat and then it's game over.
Yeah.
Now everybody knows and the truth's out. But if it's just one-on-one, that's where she's put in the worst position to make a decision, and Jon's potentially vulnerable to her wrath if it goes that way.
You think if they were just alone and he said to her, like, in the first minute of the next episode, like the opening scene was him saying, like, look, I just got
this
you may
is
want
weird.
to sit down for this.
Yeah, we can't
Definitely
bang
don't
anymore.
lie down for this because that would be bad. But you think she would immediately turn against him because she would recognize that I'm no longer even the one who has the rightful to motivate these people to be behind me.
I think Bran needs to be there. I think Bran needs to be there.
1v1 is bad.
Right, because Bran has seen. Bran knows the history.
Right.
He knows the now.
He's got the receipts.
and he kind of knows what's coming.
Daenerys might be like, Bran, you can see the future, whatever, see the past. Screw that. Who says you can? You know, whatever. You know, so I don't know that she would treat him as credible unless he were to tell her a bunch of stuff about her past that maybe
Although
only he would know.
the fact that the dragons like him and he's able to ride the dragon.
Yeah.
And then if he says to her, I'm one of you.
Okay, but wait. This whole ride the dragon thing.
Yeah.
Can we drill down on this for just a second?
Well, yeah,
Everybody's
because I have
saying
two
that because Jon can ride the dragon, he's a Targaryen.
Yeah.
But remember at the end of season 7 when all 15 people got rescued from the ice patch.
That's true.
They all flew out.
Yeah, and who
they
was
all
on,
flew out.
But who was on the dragon?
No, all of them.
Jon Snow
but Jon was on the dragon signing off on it.
There we go.
But all of them were on the dragon. All of the survivors got out by dragon.
But the two things with the Targaryens, correct me if I'm wrong, is the family forever has been incestuous, right?
I'm sure all of them.
Yeah,
have.
most of these families seem pretty.
Okay, but so therefore that's nothing really. I mean, with all due respect, out of the ordinary between Daenerys and Jon, and I thought, according, following somebody on Twitter who shot at me after the episode, only Targaryens can ride the dragon per the books.
Right.
So that,
maybe it's
I
ride or
believe
control. Maybe there's
know.
It's TV versus book.
Right.
Liberty
Good point.
bit,
Like the dragon is normally a self-driving dragon.
very
Like only a
right.
Targaryen can take over the master controls of it or something like
I
that.
wonder what
that's
the
it.
mortality rate is in Westeros with all this incest. It can't. It's got to be bad.
It can't be good. Hey, can we talk about Cersei's
do.
pregnancy?
Yeah.
I think this is really, really important.
Yeah.
Not so much about who the father is going to be.
And the way she gave in to Euron and let him house her kind of bugged me too.
Yeah, I agree.
It was one of the great quotes, maybe in the history of the series, that is immediately nullified.
Yeah.
If you want a whore, buy her. If you want a queen, earn her.
Yeah.
30 seconds later, I'll bang you.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
What gives?
And then he spent a
pushover.
minute and a half quizzing her on how well he did.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he's very
that's always
insecure.
a great line
Very
to take.
insecure.
Like,
Right.
how do I
Chicks love
compare?
that, by the way.
Yeah.
Here's why I think this is really important.
You were hung like Tyrion. What do you want me to say?
Hopefully she doesn't know how well
the scale?
Tyrion's hung. She's pregnant, and this thing needs time to play out. A pregnancy needs time to play out, and they've given us this who's the father thing, right?
Yeah.
Which, that's a storyline that we won't know for however long her term is left, 6 months or whatever, right?
We were led to be she was pregnant by Jaime.
Right.
We were led to believe first she was pregnant by Jaime, and they went to great lengths to. She told Jaime she's pregnant by Jaime, right?
Yeah.
The only reason to put this storyline together is for an eventual payoff on who the child is.
A birth.
That means Cersei's not dying. I mean, Cersei's going to live long enough to give birth to this baby.
Well, that also
That's my
means
not
fantasy
dying.
bit the show because she's not near Winterfell. So she's not dying this show. So that you stepped on my touchdown call for my fantasy bit.
Well, and I just think
and I'm in on
this
her too,
tells
yeah.
this tells us she's going to make it to term because you don't do all this work to set up this storyline for the baby,
But term
only
can
to have
be
her get blasted by a dragon
But
and
term
die.
can be episode to episode because they can make, from episode 2 to 3, it took 5 months. 5 months later, this happened.
Yeah, it's possible, but I just don't see a scenario where they advance this thing all the way to her giving birth in the next 2 episodes. I mean, I think that feels like a final episode payoff, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is the way we're assuming that when she acted pregnant, like when Tyrion was like, "You're pregnant," previously,
right.
We're assuming that was truthful. Except her
we don't
reaction
know.
then when Euron was like, "I'm going to put a prince in your belly" or whatever,
Yeah.
and then her reaction was like, "That's a good idea." So then I saw
was
some
intrigued
people,
by it.
but then I saw some people basically saying, "Oh, she wasn't pregnant before."
Yeah, there's a lot of
She's
people
gonna
think she
which is
wasn't
sort of what you
before.
were hinting at, obviously.
Yes.
And if that's the case, not only does she have to stay alive for well, then it would be 8 or 9 months from that point.
Right.
But this whole storyline can't wrap up fully until 8 or 9 months.
Bingo. Mm-hmm.
So then the fact that they're rapidly nearing Winterfell, they being the White Walkers.
And
the
it was
Night King.
made apparent they have made dragon glass in abundance.
Right. Then that scene almost has to come now or pretty quickly in the episode count, because if this whole thing is going to at least stretch for 9 months or even 6 months, well, how are you going to keep them away from the big battle when
that's right.
Jon Snow is basically saying, we're holed up here, we'll wait for him here in Winterfell.
Right.
So, I'm starting to think you're probably right with that.
Anything else off episode 1 into episode 2 that is compelling and or intriguing to you guys? Like for me, with the way it ended with Jaime and Bran, love that. Love the way they set up the scenes for the next episode with clearly something is emerging. So now I'm beginning to think with the Unsullied, some warriors from those smaller towns potentially. I don't know, maybe I'm being, maybe I'm sensationalizing too much or just being too dreamy here, but I do envision the living and the dead fight next episode 2, and I'm also not completely dead on the thought that the warriors from King's Landing will come rolling in kind of save the day like fashion.
Well, how? I mean, Cersei's not letting that army get anywhere near this battle, right?
Right,
So,
unless Jaime has a way to basically have loyalty with his former troops, kind of.
somehow, but Jaime's up in Jaime's up in Winterfell.
Right. That's going to be some raven to send back.
Yeah, right.
Hey, guys, I'm over here now. I got brown hair now, but also if you come hang out, there's not any food for you here or anything. But
Jon Snow still had the fur coat Sansa made for him, too. That was cool.
I think in that regard, I think it's more likely, given the Cersei angle, I like it being, and this continues to cement the idea that the dead go down first, and then ultimately it's humans determining their own fate, and I think that ends at King's Landing, one way or the other, baby involved, whatever.
Right.
So I don't see them being heroes. One other thing, everybody's kind of converging on Winterfell. Bronn's on his way up there now with the crossbow, and he's still pissed that he couldn't get in on the foursome. But Theon, this was just kind of an annoying part of the episode.
Was.
He has been so gutless and awful for almost this entire series. Blame it on Ramsay Bolton and the castration and all of that. I get it.
He's found his feet though.
Correct. And suddenly out of nowhere, it becomes the most easy task in the history of the show, where he and 2 or 3 of his guys just roll up on a ship, kill a bunch of guys, then they rescue Yara, and as they're returning to the Iron Islands, she's going to take back their home, the Iron Islands. And he's just going to go off and now be a hero. And I mean, his character, just in 2 years of not watching episodes, has completely changed face.
The implausibility of this whole scene is ridiculous. First, how do they even know where Yara is, let alone which boat she's on? And it's part of an armada.
There's at least 5 ships.
So his one ship somehow snakes through an armada, finds the right ship with her on it, boards it. None of the other ships react, and they take off with her.
Let's stop poking holes in the greatest show in the history of television.
How about just if the show stops asking me to assume something absolutely absurd?
Well, plus the last time we saw the Iron Fleet, I realized Euron was off with the Queen, so their leader was. But the last time we saw the Iron Fleet, they were so powerful that Theon was like, "I got to get out of here," and just jumped in the water, basically. And now they were all like napping at noon or something like that. They're like, Euron's off having fun. Let's just all take a nap. But
hey, do you guys think the Greyjoy group has a big say in the final 5 episodes of Game of Thrones?
Here's where they may.
And the only reason I bring it up is because, like, through all of the episodes and everything, whether it's Theon, Euron, Yara, I can't get into that family or that group.
Yeah, I'm sort of with you on that.
Well, certainly a side family, right? When we're talking about the 3 families that could be vying for relevancy here, we're never talking about the Greyjoys, but they keep coming back to zombies can't swim, and there may very well be a scenario here where, because of their mastery of the waters, they play a role in helping defeat the undead.
Right.
Remember, Night King walks through fire. The White Walkers have walked through fire. Now the Whites can't, but the Night King and remember the difference. The White Walkers have the blue eyes, and they're different from the zombies, which are called Whites.
The Dragon Glass will kill them for sure.
Correct.
We think the Valerian Steel will kill them.
Yeah.
Right.
And remember, when the right one
Valerian
dies,
Steel kills them.
10,000 around him die.
Whoever sort of, whoever.
Yeah.
I think whoever.
You kill Night King and 60,000 are falling.
I think whichever White Walker raised that thing from the dead, you can, I think that guy controls that undead guy. And if you kill the White Walker, I think all of his minions go down.
Last thing for me, and maybe this kind of transitions into the fantasy portion of the equation. We pick a character, we get points, and Charch will take care of that momentarily. But any of you see like a character whose position or status changed for you, whether it's safety, security, up or down, from episode 1? For me, I mean, and maybe this is the obvious one, but Daenerys. I looked at, how the happy ending was going to take place, and I thought it'd be difficult to get there, but I always saw her as one of the pillars in the positive end of things.
Right. And
now the combination of the Daenerys v. Sansa potential power struggle, the dynamics there, combined with, as I'm thinking about it more, the negativity that will arise when she finds out that Jon Snow is the man in charge. That for her, my level of faith in her lasting through all of this and being smiles at the end has gone down significantly.
Techie?
I picked her as my number 1 fantasy pick last week because I just assumed at that point, well, obviously she's going to make it through all 6 episodes. I still think that, but I agree with what you're saying is like her claim to top status and her whole premise to all these people from separate groups of follow me because I'm the only one that's worth following takes a huge hit. The other character, like this is on a much smaller scale, but I was not expecting Bronn to be like tossed back in here as a major chess piece immediately.
Agreed.
He's a great character. Like I'm glad that he's going to be involved.
No way he's going to shoot his old boss.
Yeah, you think he has what it takes to kill Tyrion?
He has what it takes.
That's not happening.
He's never going to do that. I don't think he'd kill Jaime either. I think
I agree.
He'd basically, if he gets in a room with either of them, he's going to remember that these are actually the good guys, at least relative to Cersei.
He'll be drunk in a brothel for 3 days and he'll lose his freaking crossbow.
Lucky.
It could be. But if he could maybe join forces with them, if they can talk him into it and somehow be in on the double crossing of Cersei, I think that could be interesting.
For me, and I know every time I bring this up, Nordo's skin crawls because it's by far his least favorite character of the whole bit. Bran, who you think is the least compelling. Okay, great.
Nordo's right. He's so boring, but he has all the power.
Guess what?
I acknowledge that.
That power is going off the charts right now.
Ooh.
It is increasing season by season, episode by episode, to the point where when he rolls those eyes back, things are going to start happening that we can't see right now. It still freaks me out when the techie comes outside, sees Bran, and says, "What are you doing here?" And Bran's like waiting for an old friend.
Right.
Mm-hmm. He didn't know Jaime was coming, so his power is off the chart. So when you talk about is power or chances of living diminishing or increasing, Bran, for me, is increasing. And his all-encompassing power is going to have a major, major role in the entire season.
He's so effing weird. When Jon Snow is over the moon.
He's the three-eyed raven. What do you expect?
Hey, you've grown. You've grown into a man now. And Brad just says, almost.
Yeah.
What the hell does that mean? I don't even understand it.
He's always just got to be so teenage. God, just
But think
just
about
say
what's
what you
on his
mean
mind.
for once, and
think about what's on his mind. I mean, here we're focusing on season 2.
Yeah.
So we're doing a precap. We are previewing and recapping over like 45 minutes to an hour. He has to think about everything that's happened.
Yeah.
What's happening? What's going to happen? Oh my God, you would be mentally sedated too.
No, he's looking at life in ones and zeros right now. I mean, he's
in the Matrix.
He's the Matrix, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because he has all that information.
Yes.
He's as weird as advertised. It probably should be that way. But
But the other thing they set up with that is everyone is kind of weirded out by him.
Yeah.
Or at least like they're like, he says something, they go, I don't know what that means.
Right.
Basically.
Yeah, right.
But if they were somehow convinced that he did know all this stuff, they could just sit him down, and just know everything.
Tell us, that's right.
They could be like, well,
Just
where are the
tell us
White
how it all
Walkers right
ends.
now?
Yeah.
Who's this guy's dad?
Right.
Who's that guy?
Yes.
Wow.
He's got every answer.
But it's not going to happen because he's so weird.
But that might be coming.
Maybe.
Maybe
the big
that
download.
You can't have a character who knows everything. because anybody would just go up to him and ask for every
do, like,
eventuality,
20 minutes
every mystery.
of pure exposition where
Yes.
it's just like, well, here's what's happened.
Okay.
Here's
that's
what's
right.
coming. Like,
Right.
people are like, oh, I don't need to watch the rest of this episode.
All right, here's
Correct.
the deal. That was the voice of the Thrones techie, Aaron Gleeman, at Aaron Gleeman, Paul Charchian, fanball.com. He's here. Likewise for Eric Nordquist, producer of the 9 to Noon radio show, FM 100.3, KFAN, KFAN.com. I'm the host, Paul Allen. We have a big Men of the North Episode 3 announcement coming up momentarily. But before we do that, let's continue the fantasy game Paul Charchian put together last week. What do you got?
And again, the way this game works is you're trying to pick characters who are going to live the longest, and you add a character every week. And then every week in which your character stays alive, you get 100 points times the number of weeks they've been on your roster and stayed alive.
So, for instance, in the final episode, if somebody dies, you would not get points.
You
for
would
that
not get
week.
points for that week.
Okay.
If somebody,
Right.
any episode in which they die, you don't get points.
You don't get the 600 points for that week.
Yeah,
That's right.
Everybody square?
In the last episode,
Yeah,
Paul, you took Arya.
Yeah.
I took Tyrion.
Yeah.
Eric took Jon. Eric took Jon, and Aaron took Daenerys.
Yeah.
So that sets the table, and you can pick. We can have duplicates, but none of us chose duplicates,
We have a
which is part
four-way
of the
tie.
beauty of it. And so now you're adding a second character to your roster. You're going to keep the one you got,
Got
and
it.
you're going to gain another one. All right.
Oh, so we keep the one
You
we
keep
have.
the one you
Yeah,
got.
it's a keeper league.
It's a keeper league, right?
Oh.
So you're going to keep Arya, and she's going to
Great.
keep scoring for you every single week. She
Great.
stays on your roster.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you're going to add another name
I
to it.
love this game.
All right.
By the way, did we bet real cash on this game?
We really should have.
I don't believe we did. $20 bucks each.
20 bucks
winner
each.
take all.
Yeah, we're still
Winner take
in.
all.
Yeah, yeah,
20
yeah.
bucks
Done.
each. Winner take all.
Power trip bets.
Okay,
I don't
so
know if he
I go
listens, he should.
3-2. Then we do the name.
That's right.
Okay, 3-2. Cersei.
Jon Snow.
You went Jon Snow
Yeah.
again?
No.
And we all
I
went
didn't take
Cersei.
Jon Snow. I took Daenerys.
three
Oh, you take
Cerseis.
Jon Snow this time?
Yeah.
Three Cerseis and a Jon
Three
Snow.
Cerseis
All right,
and a
explain,
Jon
explain
Snow.
your
all
Jon.
took Cersei.
Yeah,
Boy.
explain.
Yeah.
Well, that's
she's-
because my logic was irrefutable.
Unless
Yeah.
Euron kills her and we don't see it coming, who else is going to kill her?
Right. So you're
She has
basically
no
saying
threats to her.
She
Yeah,
can't
no
die
threats.
in the next 3 episodes at least.
Euron, though,
That's not a bad-
Euron is arrogant enough, power hungry enough, and zany enough to just go ahead and offer, and we
No
don't
way.
see it coming.
By the way, what's the long play with him right now, though? Because there's no war. So he brings Golden Company.
Yeah.
He gets laid. So,
I don't know.
That transaction in
I'm
some ways.
I'm not a big fan of his character.
That might have been
Never
the
have
wrong
been.
play, where he's just like, yeah, I'm going to go have sex with the queen now.
I think he's
His-
super interesting.
his
But
whole-
right now, they're just chilling. Like, he's going to go back out to his boat and just wait.
Yeah.
Because that's
I
kind of
think
the
that's-
strategy,
I think that
right?
is gonna
and also
happen.
he's going to
Yeah.
show up and Yara's not going to be there.
Yeah.
Right.
So he's going to be like, what happened?
Yeah, what happened
Yara
to
might
Yara?
kill him.
No, that's the thing.
If
Yeah.
Yara
Yara
kills
might
him,
kill
I couldn't
at the
care
end.
less.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I won't miss
If
him.
Euron is killed in this next episode, couldn't care less.
Yara's
miss
going to
him.
kill him at the end. Why did you take Jon Snow?
Well, so all this stuff about how Daenerys has kind of lost at least the strong grip on the top spot, I
Yeah.
think compelled me to think like then Jon. But we also just discussed the fact that if Daenerys finds out about that in a certain circumstance,
Right.
it might be the end of Jon Snow. I just don't
could be.
see that happen. I feel like they're setting this up so that Jon Snow, at the very least, the arc from here has to be, now that he knows his actual name is Aegon,
Right.
he's got to take some things from there. So I feel like, sort of like you were talking about with Cersei, they're not going to set all this up to kill him in
Yeah.
episode 2 or 3.
Now, with Men of the North, the Unsullied, Eric Nordquist, the techie Aaron Gleeman, Paul Charchian, and yours truly, Paul Allen, we have made an organizational change to when we are doing this podcast.
Indeed.
The next podcast will be Monday, April 22nd. So a day after each and every Game of Thrones episode, we will tape about 12:05 Cornfields time, which means at 1:32 in the afternoon, the Men of the North podcast will be available. Thank you very much for listening. Enjoy episode 2, season 8, Game of Thrones. For Nordo, Thrones techie Aaron Gleeman, and Paul Charchian, I'm Paul Allen. We are Men of the North. Our 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 Men of the North.